Hey there, MCU fans. This is Wesatron. Today we're going to be taking a look at Hasbro's Marvel Legends Doctor Strange series Doctor Strange action figure. This is from the Build-A-Figure Dormammu series. Just dropped 2016. I didn't even know these were out yet. I just was up at Toys R Us looking for something else and just happened across this fella and a couple others. So very excited to have these a little bit earlier, or at least ahead of my planned schedule. So similar type of packaging to what we've seen before. This yellow box art is very similar to the X-Men wave that we just saw. There's some nice coloring in the background there. You can see most of his accessories, if not all. I showed you the art there on the side of Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. On the back, we've got a little bit of blurb at the top. The Sorcerer Supreme combats evil using many forms. It's kind of generic, but they, interestingly enough, have Doctor Strange and the Astral Form both sharing a card back. So I don't think they're supposed to be variants. I mean, they come with different parts, as you can see from the picture down here at the bottom. So I'm not sure why they're sharing the same backing, or the same picture on the back. So that's a little odd. But as you can see, there's 8 figures in this wave, so there's quite a lot of figures to get if you want to complete Dormammu. Luckily, I've already got the SDCC set, so I don't really need him. But yeah, the packaging is what we expect from Marvel Legends. Let's go ahead and get him out and see what he's like. And here is Dr. Stephen Strange out of packaging. And he's a pretty cool little action figure. I like this guy. First, accessories. We've got the Build-A-Figure piece. This is Dormammu's left leg. Very nice musculature. I really like the swirly metallic plastic they used for this. It gives it a very otherworldly feel, and I don't think there's a spray on this. I think all of this is just the plastic it's molded in. It's kind of hard to tell because that kind of looks like it might be a little spray, but I'm honestly not 100% sure. But it is very attractive. I mean, it looks really cool. He's got a big, like, Skeletor looking shin guard here, I guess, boot top, and appropriate articulation all the way around. You know, swivel in the calf, hinge forward and back, the swivel there as well, double hinge knee, and of course it'll attach to the main body via swivel peg. So yeah, I don't think I'll be getting all of Dormammu, which is good for me, but at least you won't be able to see him all together, so that kind of stinks for you guys. We got extra hands. He comes packaged with these holding things hands. So I always like having these just because it gives you display options, even if you wanted to display him with something that he didn't come with. If you wanted to give him some random staff or something like that, you could, which is cool. And he also has these sort of arcane magic user hands, which are really, really well detailed, really well sculpted. I really like them. What I thought was interesting is that they didn't do the classic Doctor Strange pose with the like the 2 fingers down, the pinky and index finger up. So I guess maybe that's not something that's going to be featured in the movie. I don't know if Benedict Cumberbatch can't do it, or they just didn't think it was important, or maybe it's they just missed it for this figure and he does do it, but they have to go with these instead. But you do have left and right of both of those hands, and I've got them swapped on here. His little power effects part here, which is very cool. Looks like some kind of a gate or talisman or something like that, but it's got all kinds of really nice writing on it. These raised parts here are all painted in a kind of a lighter orange or yellow plastic, or yellow paint, and the rest of it is molded in a clear plastic so you can kind of see through it. Very cool. And it's got just a little peg handle here, like any kind of shield. So both of the holding things hands, you just slide it in just like that, and he holds it very well. So it's very cool. I like this little effect piece. It looks really, really neat, and I really like all the little runes and things along the edges. They did a really, really nice job replicating the look of the magic from the movie. So yeah, good job, Hasbro. Very cool. The figure himself is pretty cool. You can sort of consider that he's got 2 more accessories, and sort of not, because they are part of the costume. But his cape here, his big magnificent cape, is removable. You just slip it off over his head, which is very cool. And you can see they didn't go with the gold lining, but all the lining of it does have that sort of like magical scrawl to it that he always had in the comics. It's not quite as involved as what it looks like in the comics, but it does look good. And then we've got kind of like a big swoosh right here. It kind of almost replicates the window of the Sanctum Sanctorum a little bit. That's kind of neat. And then some really nice like texture up at the top and in certain parts of the cape. Just looks really, really nice. I'm not sure what differentiates between a cape and a cloak. Oh, that's really nice. Kind of almost an Elizabethan pattern on the inside. Very, very cool. Yeah, the cape is really well detailed. A wash would really bring out these details really well. If you wanted to do maybe like a brown wash on it, since it's kind of a maroon color, that would be pretty cool. The only downside to the cape is that it's kind of designed to be posed in a certain way where if you move up his left arm, it kind of raises the cape up and around his neck because this part comes down over the arm. So they kind of want you to pose with the right arm and not the left, which is a bummer for me just because I'm a left-handed person, so I tend to focus on left-handed things. But yeah, most people probably won't notice that. I would say probably, what is it, something in the range of 85 to 90% of the population won't care. And this here is the Eye of Agamotto. Very, very cool. It may be hard to tell. I'm going to try and get a little closer. But it is actually have these like little leather wraps here. That's actually brown paint on those. It's just slightly lighter than the necklace itself, than the cord back here. So it's kind of cool that they painted that much detail into it for being such a small accessory. But you can see the little emblem right there. And then on the back, it's kind of not detailed very well. But that just also slips right over his neck and just kind of hangs there. That's something I feel like I'm going to lose, so I'm going to be real careful with that because, you know, just kind of flipping it upside down, that will go flying, so we'll just have to keep an eye out for that. Onto the actual figure. Very, very nice likeness of Benedict Cumberbatch. I don't think his hair looks quite like this in the movie from what I've seen. It looks like it's just a hair longer, no pun intended. Not quite as long as he wears it in Sherlock, but definitely a little bit longer, I believe, on the sides. But that may have just been a design change that happened from the initial designs to the actual finished design. So it's not a huge deal. The hair is a little bit more of a chocolatier brown, not like a dark color like he has in Sherlock. So I'm not sure if that's more accurate to the movie or not, because so far we've only seen art from it, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I do think from what I've seen so far of the art that he should have a little bit less of the gray on the sides. It doesn't look bad or anything. I mean, it looks perfectly, you know, Stephen Strange-ish. It just seems like that might be a little bit more than what he has in the movie itself. So not a big deal, just something to be aware of. The eye paint is pretty decent on these. I would say it's probably one of the better jobs they've done recently with people they actually had to paint, you know, pupils for. So good job there. And the mustache and goatee looks really nice. I'm glad they went with that instead of just the classic mustache. It just brings it into the modern era a little bit. And speaking of the modern era, they have definitely updated the costume and sort of retro updated it. And they gave him a very, well, it would have been a Tibetan style robe, but they've changed that for the movie. So I guess it's more of a Nepalese style robe. But yeah, very cool. Lots of good texture on it, as you can see. He's got all these great belts that come down here and everything, and more of them around his wrists. All of this looks really bunched up, like it's kind of thinner fabric, or even if it's like a thicker cloth, that there's just like a lot of girth to it. It looks really, really good. You can see maybe some little cordage around the shoulders there, around just above the biceps right there. Very, very nice. Not a ton of paint on it, but what is on it does look good. We have a little bit of a lighter color in the upper portion of the belt here. In the comic, I believe he wears a yellow sash, so that's a little different. He also has like a design up here on his chest and things. So little gold studs here on the belt. Everything looks good. And as I said, there's lots of texturing. And the pants also look very good. The skirt does get in the way of seeing them, but they are there and they look good. It may not come off that way because of the lights and the camera, but this is kind of a darker, almost like a navier blue, and this is more like a deep turquoise. Although my wife says I'm colorblind, so I could be wrong there. And then we have black boots, no paint on the buckles, but that would be an easy thing to dress up if you wanted to kind of improve the look of the guy. If you were going to do a wash and things, you know, that'd be a really easy thing to add a lot of detail to, so that's cool. Bottom of the shoes are not detailed, but they do have peg holes, so you'll be able to use any kind of peg stand with him. So very, very cool. Overall, looks-wise, this guy looks really, really good, and he definitely fits in with the aesthetic of the other characters in the MCU. He's still got kind of that feel where it's like real world, but also fantastic, so I think they did a good job with the design, and Hasbro replicated it very well. Now, as far as articulation, he's pretty standard for a Marvel Legends figure. A little bit different in a couple ways, but we'll get to that. We've got a ball-jointed head, which has its own movement, which is pretty good. And then it's also got a hinge, so he can look very far down and very far up, which is always cool. His hair does bump into the collar a little bit back here, but, you know, he can still look pretty decently up. Swivel hinges in the shoulders, go all the way around. And very tight joints. They do go up to about there, so very nice range in the shoulders. Let me get this down just because of the contrast. Swivels in the biceps muscles, or above the biceps muscles, and then we've got a hinge. First point gets you not quite 90 degrees, and second point, if I can get it moving, there we go. He does have very, very tight joints. I mean, it's a brand new mold, so it makes sense. But yeah, double hinge will get you all the way up to there, so that's very nice. You can get, maybe if you move his head a little bit, you can get him to stroke his beard in contemplation, thinking over a spell or something like that, so that's very cool. We've got a really nice ball joint in the waist because they didn't interrupt the sculpt up here, so they put a really good ball joint. Look at that. Look at that. That's really, really nice. Go Hasbro. That's awesome. I guess because he's got this big overlay right here, they could kind of get away with that. So, you know, you get good forward motion, good back motion, and of course the side to side and a twist there as well. So a really good job on the waist there, Hasbro. I dig it. We have swivel hinge or ball and socket joints in the hips. It's kind of hard to tell because you can't really see up there very well. The skirt does block this motion quite a bit. It is actually really difficult to use the legs. This opening right here kind of helps a little bit getting the left leg moving. So you can get the left leg up forward about that far, but you can only push back about that far. There are swivels up here as well, so you can get a nice rotation on those. And then the double hinge in the knees, it all depends on how well you can actually use it, just because the skirt is so massive. But both points together, you can do about like that. So not too bad, but definitely not great. It's not Hasbro's best. Part of that is just because of the sculpt. These are very large pants. You know, he wears much looser clothes than most of the MCU characters, so that's just going to be how it is. This leg is much more difficult to move, but you can still get some motion out of it. It's just the knees aren't quite as useful and stuff. You just kind of have to work with how you pose him. He's really not bad. It may seem worse than it is from, you know, the way I'm presenting it, but it's really not that bad. You have, you know, like a slit up here in the back, and it kind of raises up on the side. So, I mean, you can still get some decently wide stances. You just, you know, you don't want to tear this piece, so just be careful with it. And then we've got swivels at the tops of the boots. Always nice to see. I love the swivel in the boot or the calf, so that's awesome. And then we have a hinge. It's a swivel hinge completely, but right now it's just the hinge, and then we've got a swivel there as well. So, and the swivel in the calf, as we've shown before, makes it to where you can take really big, wide, deep stances, and then you can just kind of turn the leg so that the foot will still stay flat and they'll stand up perfectly. So yeah, I love that. That's a great feature. Yeah, articulation wise, this guy's top notch. His design kind of holds him back just a bit, but overall I think Hasbro did a pretty solid job with him. And here's Doctor Strange with just a couple more characters from the MCU, so you can see, you know, height wise he fits in just about right. He probably, well, I guess he's probably about the same height as Cap. Cap is much bulkier, so he, you know, he is supposed to be a little more eldritch, I believe. So Cap being bulkier may seem bigger in the movies, but really they're probably near the same height, I would think. And then Sam's over there chilling, just being awesome. In terms of actual height, He comes in at about 6 1/4 inches to the top of his hair. Maybe a tad more than that, but right at about 6 1/4. So yeah, he fits in pretty well with these other figures, and like I said, stylistically, I think he does the trick as well. So I got this guy at Toys R Us. There was a bit of a discount just because of, you know, various circumstances, but he should run you about $19.99. I paid a little bit less, but not much less. For your $20, you get the very well articulated and detailed action figure with a really nice likeness to Benedict Cumberbatch. I will just reiterate that one more time. He looks really good, and he's much better than the Sherlock we got from, was it Biff Bang Pow? Underground Toys. Yeah. So yeah, the likeness is great. The detail is great. A wash here and there on your own will really make him pop. But yeah, it's a nice figure. You get the Dormammu Build-A-Figure leg, which doesn't have a lot of value for me, but it will for you if you are deciding to build a figure. You get 2 extra hands, one open, one closed. And then you get the really nice effects piece, which just looks really, really cool. Yeah. This is a figure where I don't think I'm going to have to get the Bandai version to replace it. They did a really great version on their own, so kudos to Hasbro on doing another great job. That's pretty much it for this review. If you have any questions or comments about this action figure, hit me up. I'll be glad to answer them. And I also have a couple more from this way, so stay tuned if you'd like to see more. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.